Hey, I'm Nicholas Prom,
I'm Chase.
and you're watching Posers Must Die. Uh, Today we are joined by a very special guest, um, James R. Beach, author, uh, label runner, uh, and concert promoter. And we are going to talk about all of these hats that you wear. Uh, James, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, good. Oh, good.
A little bit
So
of funkiness getting it started, but
that's
technology.
okay. Technology, it just is what it is. But yeah, so we like to when we do these interviews, we like to start out with a few softball, just like fun questions, like David Lee Roth or Sammy Hagar, James.
Um, yeah, I think Diamond Dave you always got to roll with, but I sadly never saw them with him. I seen him with Sammy. I
Sure.
really debated about going to the reunion without Michael Anthony, but I just kind of said, nah, I just couldn't do it. I did have a ticket when I was a teenager, like freshman year of high school. I think I had a ticket um, for the 1984 tour, which sold out,
Oh,
and
oh.
I dumbly traded it for an ounce of weed, thinking, "Oh, this is a way better deal for this." And of course, thinking I would see Roth with him next year, and that never happened. So
Oh man.
Oh
those sort of
man.
regrets that you
Ooh.
do.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all have a story like that, James. So this is very relatable, man. Uh, but yeah. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I've seen
that
it.
said, that said, they were fantastic. I saw them for Unlawful Cardinal Knowledge tour where Alice in Chains opened up for him. My
Oh,
wife and I,
nice.
who was my girlfriend at the time, um, we went together, and that show was incredible.
I'll bet.
So even though I didn't, get to see him with Roth, which is my favorite period of the band, um, I did see a really good show where it was kind of a better, like a high point for Van Halen at that point too with
Oh,
that record.
sure.
Yeah, yeah.
I liked the first one they did with him. The second one not as much. I thought it was kind of weak and a
Yeah.
little too experimental and stuff. But that third record they did really blew, kind of blew him back into it again. It had some multiple
Yeah.
hits off of it, and seemed to be accepted with kind of like Ozzy and Guns N' Roses and Metallica. A few of these bigger bands just kind
Yeah.
of slid it through the grunge alternative sort of wave and survived all that because I think a lot of those guys looked up to him, and obviously Alice in Chains went out and toured with those guys, and other bands played with other established metal bands at that time. But yeah, that was a fun show. So yeah, so I mean I like both, but certainly
Yeah.
the Roth stuff I think is the classic period. So
Sure.
Yeah.
I it's funny, I saw Roth solo, saw Sammy
I
solo a
did too.
couple of
Yeah,
times, and like I always say, like, you know what, David Lee Roth, he'd be cool to meet, but Sammy's the guy I'd like to hang with.
he'd
Uh
be. I think he'd be the cooler hang. Definitely, I
yeah,
agree.
yeah,
What
you know.
solo period did you see Roth? If I might ask.
I mean, this would have been probably
Okay, a little.
2003. So yeah, 3 or 4 is when I saw him.
I,
Uh,
I saw him with for the skyscraper tour
oh,
and
nice. Love that record.
80
Yeah,
88,
yeah.
I believe, and was when they played the Coliseum in Portland.
Nice.
It was supposed to be Poison
Oh,
opening,
really?
and they, on the bill, all that when we got tickets, a buddy of mine and I, and so we went and got something to eat and kind of tried to skip out of going to see Poison, and got into the arena just as kind of they were finishing up. It sounded
Yeah.
like last song, and we were at the merch booth kind of looking at stuff, and when it was over we went in, and I literally had no clue until I started working on the Metal Church book, which you talked about a little bit the other day when you reviewed the Dark record.
Yes.
um, I didn't know, but Poison had canceled um, both the Seattle, I guess the guy had jumped off, the bass player, I think it jumped off,
Oh,
broke his ankle
That's
or
right.
sprained it or whatever, and they canceled Portland, Seattle, and Vancouver, BC. I did not find out until I was interviewing guys for my Metal Church book, our Metal Church book, that it was actually Metal Church that filled in. So I totally missed him.
Oh, man, that
I
would have been
saw him the next
awesome.
year. Oh, I know. I mean, it's kind of a weird fit. They had Metal Church in Portland. Heir Apparent stepped in, got called to fill in for
Yeah.
Poison in Seattle. And weirdly, the weirdest one is DOA in
Wow.
Vancouver. If you can,
DOA
just
and
kind of grab
DLR.
whoever.
Wow.
I mean, they were in their crossover sort of period too,
Yeah.
as COC and DRI and some of those guys were.
Yeah.
But I just thought, wow, that is Metal Church. I could kind of see because they could bridge the gap between traditional metal and hard rock bands and kind of be on those bills and also be on the thrash bills. And had enough of that in there. But yeah, I just thought, oh man, I mean, Roth was fantastic with Steve Vai and Billy Sheehan in the band. Amazing band. But I was just like, wow, that's kind of a bummer. We could have just come earlier.
Oh my gosh.
But who knew? You never do.
Oh yeah.
You never do back in those days.
Yeah.
A lot of times. So
I love stories like that. Two things. One, Poison and Metal Church were actually on pretty friendly terms. Like, according to Rock and Roll Comics, the Poison issue, they're like, there's this whole sequence where they meet Metal Church and they're like, man, we thought you guys were going to be lame, but you guys rock. You're cool, And I'm like, wow, okay.
I wonder if that was true. I heard, I don't have the comic. Somebody told me about that, and I was like, well, none of the guys ever mentioned that, but knowing those guys in the band, I've met everybody pretty much except Dave Wayne.
Yeah.
And it was, all those guys are super nice. So you could totally see that they would be on some bill with them somewhere, a festival or whatever. And everybody was cool. I mean, nobody really thought, Poison, I just thought they were kind of goofy, and I'd seen the video. We just weren't into it as much, kind of like Bon Jovi. Yeah. Nothing against them, good bands or whatever, but it's just like, well, I was really in the thrash and crossover kind of stuff and some of the old school metal stuff still. So didn't really have interest in that.
Yeah. I mean, and the thing about hair metal, as metal, not really heavy metal.
No,
but
they weren't really metal. They were total
rock,
Kiss kind of throwback. But
but as rock music, hair metal's just fine, man.
I like a lot of it. Poison, I've still never really been a fan of. There's a couple songs I kind of dig. Just not enough that I need even a greatest hits. But again, nothing against them. It just wasn't really my bag. I tended to like guitar driven bands more in that ilk, like Dokken and Rat and things like that were much heavier. So.
Dokken, Rat, and Cinderella. That's my glam trilogy. I love those guys.
Nice. Those first couple Cinderella records are great too. So.
They really are. But yeah, what was I gonna say? Oh, it's so funny those David Lee Roth where Poison canceled and all these other bands filled in. They're all way heavier than him.
I know.
So I'm just like,
how
do you follow them? So like poor Dave, but I'm sure he was okay.
There's a funny story with the first book that I did, Rusted Metal, which is, I imagine we'll probably talk about a little bit in a minute. But there is a really long interview I did with Terry Gorel, who we've been fortunate to work with him and those guys on a couple record projects and really like him a lot. And he tells the story of the Seattle situation, which is pretty amusing, definitely, and kind of interesting because they sort of like looking back on it, he mentions that they were really controlling with the stage setup that Roth had because he had all this kind of ramps and different stuff. That's where the Poison, I guess, fell off and broke his ankle. Was because he had the surfboard that he rode on the wires, and so it was like a kit setup. It was amazing, and Vai's running around with the multi-neck heart guitar and all this stuff. But they talked about. Terry said that they were warned, stay where you're supposed to stay. Don't go on the ramps and scaffolding stuff and whatever. And they did, and Terry kind of regretted it because they should have just, did what they did, and the singer kind of got a little bit of stage fright with that big of a crowd, and so they had a little bit of a mishap. And in hindsight, he said we should have just went for it because we never were gonna. They kind of held the carrot like, you can go with us to play other shows, and of course that never happened. And so that one opportunity sort of thing on a bigger scale, which kind of was their biggest thing. So yeah, it's interesting.
So many things in life, like, oh man, if only I'd known. Where was my crystal ball when I needed it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So we always like to ask, do you have a preferred singer in Black Sabbath?
Oh, yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, I love not only, I mean, Dio was where I kind of came into the band.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I'd heard a couple of the songs, but that was kind of an older brother or uncle band. And
yeah.
I mean,
totally.
Yeah, I was born in 69.
Nice.
And my first, I mean, other than, I remember buying like Queen Bohemian Rhapsody single when I was like 6 or whatever.
Oh wow.
When that came out. But we also just kind of listened to whatever as kids, and my brother was 3.5 years younger than I, and so we would play things on a little crappy turntable. But I remember buying that was like the first record I bought was Bohemian Rhapsody with I'm in Love with My Car.
Oh wow.
And maybe 76. And then a buddy, I met a kid in school that was a Japanese kid that moved from Japan with his parents. Wow. And this was when I was in second grade. And he would draw these huge he was a really good artist, and he would draw all these stage things of Kiss live because he'd actually seen them in Japan. First time they'd went there, he'd move like right after or something, I think, in the summer or whatever. And so he turned me onto it. And then a friend of mine, his grandparents lived on the corner of us, and his mom worked. And she took him over there, him and his little brother. And he was already like, his mom was kind of a younger mom. I think she had him when she was just like right out of high school, probably.
Sure.
And like a year older than me. And his brother was a couple of years younger than me. So it was right in between my brother and I and him and those two guys. And we would all hang. And Craig was already like listening to his mom's Kiss records, and she liked Alice Cooper a lot. And
nice.
I remember being really scared. I'd seen him on the Muppets. And I was really scared, though, going to her house because she had all these posters of Alice Cooper with like tarantulas crawling by his head on the pillow. And I loved horror movies, but I was like, this guy's kind of freaky, and the big snake and everything. And of course, I love Alice Cooper now. I've seen him 3 or 4 times.
Nice.
But yeah, it was a little scary when you're 10, 8 years old, this kind of thing. But I got into Kiss pretty early, and so that was actually, I got to go with Craig and his mom and her boyfriend. His mom and boyfriend stayed overnight to get tickets, and she would babysit my brother and I sometimes too. And so my parents knew her, and I think that's the only reason I got to go. But they had a couple friends that were the other couple going with them who bagged out for whatever reason, and Craig talked his mom into taking both of us to Kiss in August of 77. So that was my first concert as 8 years old.
Oh man.
Damn, dude.
It was amazing. I mean, you're talking Love Gun Tour. What became a live tune for the record. And it was fantastic. I don't remember the songs or whatever till later on, but I thought, because I thought they were cartoon characters or like comic book. I love comics and horror movies. It was like, that was the gateway for a bunch of us that are around my age, a little older, a little younger. We saw Kiss on TV.
Yeah.
They were on like the Paul Lynde show on Halloween. I saw
special. Yeah.
Classic.
And we loved that Kiss movie, as cheesy as it is.
It's fun. I've watched it a bunch. I've watched it a bunch. And that's great. Kiss, that was like
gateway. Yeah, that was really
the height of their powers at that time. That's awesome.
They were fantastic.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it was an amazing show. Fireworks, lights, Gene Simmons splitting blood and blowing fire, and Ace Frehley shooting fireworks out of his guitar.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God, it's amazing. And so then, of course, right after that, I went out and I bought, like, I think Alive 2 was the first record I bought with my own money.
Love Alive 2.
within a couple months or so later that fall, it came out. And then it was, of course, after that, I just bought everything. By the time they did Dynasty, which I still like a lot, but that had the disco song, we sort of like, this is kind of not as good. And I was listening to Van Halen and Rush and AC/DC and things like that were coming into play.
Yeah.
And so, so then went right from that into like new wave of British heavy metal stuff.
Yeah.
So it's all that sort of arc of, going to see them. I didn't get to go to a concert again like that until I was like in junior high. And then I started going to like more arena shows and, saw a lot of that kind of stuff. So yeah, all in Portland pretty much. Later on, I would go to some shows in Seattle and stuff. Once I could drive, I always had kind of a lot of flaky friends as far as car stuff. I
know the feeling.
Yeah, I didn't get my license till I was like 19. So
okay.
Not that I didn't drive quite a bit, but yeah. But
I got you.
Yeah, so I just, went right into that. And I saw Ozzy with Motley Crue in February of '84. I was going to go to the Diary tour with a friend and his older brother, but by then my mom went to church and kind of was really, Christian, and they didn't know who Kiss was at the time. And maybe they'd watched it. I'm sure we watched it on TV and stuff, but they didn't really connect, I think. And once they found out, they weren't super happy. And then when Ozzy came, and you listen to Ozzy and Iron Maiden, my mom's like, there's no way you're going to that. So I couldn't go to the Diary tour, which we didn't know Randy had died. They never announced. I mean, it was probably in the press, but like my friend and his brother that went, he came back with a tour book and a shirt, and it showed Randy in the Diary.
Yeah.
I ended up having the tour book for Blizzard and Diary later on that I sold to a friend, but he was still in there. So yeah, they didn't really change it. They were kind of just trying to keep Ozzy going, I think. And so he didn't just drink himself and, whatever to death kind of thing. And, Brad Gillis was there. We was still great with him.
Brad Gillis was great.
Really stepped into there, but
he learned those songs in like a few days. It's crazy.
He did. Yeah, he was kind of waiting in the wings. There's a whole interesting story about that stuff. But Bernie Torme, that was briefly filled in and all that.
Oh, Bernie Torme, really? From Deep Purple?
He was on that one.
Oh, I was thinking. I thought Bernie Torme was on that one Deep Purple album.
I don't think so. He was
okay. Maybe I'm mixing somebody up. Yeah.
He was Gillan's guitarist. Eventually left to go solo, which he was doing when Ozzy's. So David Arden actually tapped him and hired him to fill in.
Oh, okay.
I guess unbeknownst to Sharon.
Oh,
he just showed up. If you read Bob Daisley's book, that he talked to Bernie and got some stuff, and it's a pretty funny story.
Interesting.
But yeah, that was another one where they sort of tried to rewrite history and all that nonsense with the Ozzy. That's a whole nother thing. We won't go into that.
That's a big ball of wax.
But timely considering the Sabbath Back to the Beginning thing has all been out there and all weekend. But yeah, so I didn't get to go see Ozzy until the Bark of the Moon tour, which I ended up going by myself. My friend that I was going with, he couldn't go, got grounded or something like that, I believe. And I ended up just taking the bus down to the Coliseum. I'm like, I'm not missing this. And so it was supposed to be Pete Wayne's Wasted, the UFO guys.
Oh, Pete Way.
But they canceled. I don't know if they played Seattle. I think they canceled that too. But that was Motley Crue for Shout at the Devil, and I like those first couple records a lot.
They're good.
Those
are good records. Yeah.
And so they opened, and they were fantastic. Ozzy smoked. That was just killer with Jake E. Lee and Don Airy.
Oh, man.
Keyboards, Bob Daisley on bass, and I think it was Tommy Aldridge on drums. I'm pretty sure. Carmine and Keith.
Tommy Aldridge is awesome.
Yeah, he was on the tour, and Tommy was doing something else, I think, and then he came back. So I'm pretty sure he was the one, if I remember right.
Okay.
I didn't know at the time who was who, obviously, and other than Jake E. Lee, it was in the circus and all that kind of thing. But yeah, they were really good. I saw Maiden in '83 with Sax, and I missed Fastway, unfortunately. Another one of those where you have to go to.
Oh,
Of course, I don't think they ever came through Portland again. So
shit.
I like those guys a lot too. Those first couple records are just smoke.
They get me
But
all fired up.
all fired up, man.
That song
Dave
rules,
King,
and
man,
Fastway's fun.
wow, that guy's a fantastic singer. But
Yeah,
yeah, so I saw that. I saw Priest in '84
nice.
with a very heavy Great White. I saw them a couple times. I saw them later on with kids, but
nice.
of course by then they were more bluesier and you know, once bitten, twice shy, and all that kind of thing. But the first EP and first album of Great White, they were pretty metal. If you ever checked out that stuff, and they were really good.
I'll have to go back and check them out. I remember them being more like a blues rock band, late '80s.
It's very, it's kind of like Metal Zeppelin, that early stuff. It has that rock. He had that Robert Plant sort of vibe to his voice. Jack Russell, they could do a lot of those Zepp covers and stuff really good. Humble Pie and stuff like that.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, they were really good. Priest, that was for Defenders of the Faith. That was,
my God,
amazing. Yeah, great tour. I saw Scorpions for Love at First Sting. That's another one I remember liking a lot. That was like a ton of chicks at that show.
Yeah, I'll bet. Man.
By then they were just like, I mean, I got into them like Love Drive when that came out. I didn't know about the older stuff and kind of went back on that with Oli Roth, which is like my favorite period of the Scorpions now. But
fantastic stuff. Yeah.
But they were really cool. It was good. I liked that Love at First Sting record. I think it's a little weaker than Blackout and the couple albums before that, but just a little more polished. And but the show was really great. It's basically that live record they did.
Oh my God, which is so good. Worldwide Live.
Yeah, Worldwide Live. That's the tour that I saw. So
I was telling Chase, that is just a perfect live record. It's so good. Really good. Yeah, but we still haven't gotten to who is your favorite singer in Black Sabbath, James? Come on. Sorry.
I think it's probably got to be Ozzy because they were the foundation. I mean, I love Dio. Yeah, I love the soul stuff, and I love the couple. Yeah. I mean, I love the first two records he did with Sabbath. I like the Humanizer a lot. The later stuff is really good too. I don't think you can go wrong with any of that. Mob Rule's probably my favorite record now. Yeah. Interestingly, it's kind of shifted. It used to be Heaven and Hell. Yeah. I think there's one kind of weak song on Heaven and Hell on the B side, whereas Mob Rule's every song is perfect. So opinion, of course, but but yeah, I mean, for God's sake, despite some of Ozzy's nonsense and him and his wife, which sort of leave a little bit of bad taste in my mouth after reading Daisley's book and kind of knowing how they screwed everybody over. That is unfortunate. Some of the people overlooked in this last thing kind of burns me a bit, and a few other people too that should have got some nod at least. But God, I mean, how can you deny those guys had pretty much invented heavy metal?
Oh, I mean, no, totally.
It's popularized it and everything. Yeah.
Man. I just think this whole back to the beginning thing, it's like it's the Sharon Osbourne show. It's like, what do you mean? Black Sabbath didn't do anything after 1978, and I'm like, that's bullshit, like
I'm super
they have such an incredible legacy with these other guys. And
the most glaring thing is overlooking Bob Daisley and Kerslake because those guys co-wrote, played on the first two Ozzy solo records, which created that guy's career. I mean, literally nobody wanted to touch him, and Daisley liked him and said, I'm going to do this. I think it's interesting. And when they connected, Ozzy had seen Randy already audition and met him, suggested him. And when that whole thing came together, and the whole silliness of why they didn't continue was just basically Sharon weaseling her way in and taking over everything. Because David Arden, it was a band when he was working with him. Yeah. And if his wife hadn't have gotten pregnant, it's very likely he would have continued working with them because that was his deal.
Yeah. I was just listening to an interview with Vivian Campbell earlier today talking about how Wendy Dio did similar shit. And it's like
same cloth, basically.
These solo acts start out so great, but when they stop being a band and they become like it's this guy and whomever we just hired to be the band. It's just not
Yep.
good. It's just
Yeah.
the dynamic is not good. It's like the first three Ozzy solo albums are great, and then you can ignore everything else he's ever done.
I like some of the later stuff, but those first three, man,
Yeah,
yeah, perfect
yeah,
records, I think.
they're pretty wonderful. Yeah. But
So yeah, I mean, Sabotage is my favorite record from Sabbath.
oh yes,
I like the progressive stuff a lot. I think
yeah,
as years went on later in the 90s, I really got into prog rock, like older stuff. I'd heard Kansas and
Cool.
Yes and things like
yeah,
that,
great
but I
stuff.
never really, I was kind of past that generation. And as Dream Theater, I loved Fate's Warning. I loved
Yeah.
obviously Queensryche. I did a book on them, so kind of like them. But
Wait.
even Gargoyle
Oh yeah,
and
Gargoyle.
that was a Portland band was in that vein. I liked a lot. The Watchtower
Oh
and some of those
yeah,
early ones were just fantastic. And
yeah,
Crimson Glory, of course, amazing
yeah.
band. Those first
Oh
couple
yeah,
records, phenomenal.
yeah,
So I was already into that kind of prog metal stuff, and I
yeah.
obviously Priest and some other Maiden had elements of that sort of stuff as well. But when Dream Theater, I'd actually gotten that record. I saw an ad in a magazine and saw the record in the store of When Dream and Day Unite. And I bought the vinyl copy for like $10 or what. And I was like, wow, this is fantastic. This is amazing. I didn't think that was the right singer for the band. I thought, oh, he's kind of, and I was, read something about it where he was in Frankie and the Knockouts. And I'm like, well, he's a good singer, but it doesn't really seem like a great fit. And then they got James LaBrie and I'm like, okay, that's, when
Yeah.
Pull the Under came on the radio, I'm like, they said, "Oh, it's Dream Theater." I'm like, "What? Those guys that were on like Mechanic Records?" And I just was blown away. And
Yeah.
I was fortunate to see those guys a couple times in '95 and '97 at Starry Night there too, and meet them.
Oh wow.
Cool,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody except John Mayung, I got signatures from. I don't know why he
Nice.
just wouldn't come out of the tour bus or whatever, kind of
Sure.
shy. But yeah, really cool guys.
Cool. Yeah, I mean they seem like cool guys.
But they really spearheaded a lot of that prog metal stuff in the 90s. And all of a sudden you had, Magna Carta was bringing back Kansas, and they had Magellan and Shadow Gallery and all these cool bands. And
sure.
Shadow Gallery. Oh man.
So you take one of them. I don't know them.
It was hard. Yeah, some cool bands. They had oh god, was some really like Lemmer Voice and Ice Age. Those guys are back with their newer record in recent years, got reunited. That's pretty cool.
Ice Age are back. Oh my gosh.
Those guys, yeah, it's kind of like Styx. Sounded like Dennis DeYoung singing for a prog metal band. What a cool band. Tiles was another one I liked a lot.
Oh, wow.
Detroit. They were really cool.
Yeah.
Kind of definitely Rush Jones there with those guys. And
yeah.
But yeah, so I got in all that, and then I deep dive. I had a couple friends that were older guys that like prog rock a lot, so they turned me on to a lot of the 70s stuff. And I like interesting technical music. I mean, that's metal. I mean, people have to play to be a really good metal band. You have to know how to do your instruments and stuff. And a lot of times vocally, people are very exceptional in our genre and stuff. So so I kind of, I always liked different stuff and would explore different things. So that just kind of happened to be going on while you have all this grunge and, alternative sort of taking over a lot of the radio and major labels. Here was all this really cool underground stuff. Metal was still going underground. You could still, you kind of have to look around and find stuff. But then the prog stuff was really happening again, and that was kind of making a big comeback. And so there was just a lot of neat stuff happening, and I really liked a lot of that stuff. In fact, one of the concerts I still really liked a lot that I saw in '95 of a really cool bill was Styx in Kansas at the horse track there at the Portland Meadows.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah. We saw some shows there.
They were fantastic. Yeah. Kansas probably blew them off the stage. I mean, they were so good. It was like 3 or 4 of the original members at that point. And
that tracks. I mean, I think really as far as chops go, I mean, Kansas, I think, is stronger than Styx.
I love them. The documentary is really good if you haven't seen that.
There's a Kansas documentary. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, highly recommend it. It's such a cool story, those guys' history and stuff.
You piqued my interest.
Yeah. If you like them, it's really worth watching. Yeah, I liked Styx too growing up. I mean,
Oh yeah, yeah,
especially the harder rock and stuff, I always liked with James Young and, Miss America and,
yeah.
Renegade and things like that. I mean, they had some cool hard rockers. They
Oh,
kind
they
of
did.
blended
Yeah,
prog and AOR type of stuff in there. And
yeah. They were
so,
one of those bands like Blue Oyster Cult that kind of live in a that can kind of
yeah,
travel in multiple circles, you know.
I love Blue Oyster Cult too. I've seen
Me
those
too.
guys a few times.
Yeah, only once, but they were great. So,
Oh, they play the fairs and stuff. If you could catch them, I've seen them. I saw them once at Starry Night, like 2000 was the first time I saw them, and I kind of came late to them too
yeah,
because I liked, I saw heavy metal pretty early on.
yeah.
I think I saw besides watching it on HBO, I saw like a double feature. I was in high school at that point,
Hmm.
dropped like a hit or two of acid, and I saw Pink Floyd and
Oh wow,
The
The
Wall
Wall. Oh
and
wow.
heavy
Oh
metal and
wow.
like a
Oh
Clinton Theater
wow.
midnight movie thing, or was pretty amazing.
Yeah,
But yeah,
Yeah, I bet.
I used to party quite a lot back then, and got
sure.
out of that fortunately pretty young after
That's good.
about college age, and
Yeah.
but yeah, back then I was kind of goofing around, but yeah, that was pretty cool. But yeah, so I liked a couple of the heavier Blue Oyster Cult songs and stuff, and I
Yeah.
remember buying
Nice.
Fire on an Origin
Oh yeah.
and some of them back in the day, and when I collected records, but some of it was kind of lighter and proggier and different, and so when I was
Yeah.
first really getting into like hard rock and metal, I just kind of thought I like Godzilla and a couple things, but all these years later, I just love them. They're like one of my favorite bands. I think they're really interesting.
Yeah.
Um, there's such a cool element of different outside writers that they've been able to kind of
Oh
incorporate and
yeah, like Michael Moorcock. Oh my God.
John Shirley, I know I worked with and
Oh
had a
wow.
story in the horror magazine. I published art discoveries from him and
Oh
won
wow.
like a year's best horror book slot and an award, and
Oh
that was kind of
wow.
cool. So yeah, he's still
Cool.
blogging around. He lives in Vancouver, Washington again. He was in San Francisco for a long time, but
Okay.
he's a pretty interesting, kind of a little bit curmudgeonly old punk rocker, but like a super cool guy and brilliant writer and super smart too. And one of the founders of Portland punk rock. So, had the
Right
first,
on.
one of the first clubs with the Revenge Club. And he's involved with a lot of those, sort of co-op punk shows that Jerry A and Poison Idea and a lot of those guys
Yeah.
and stuff.
Nice. I'm
No,
grateful I got to see
another
Poison.
super cool guy. Yeah.
Grateful I got to see Poison Idea. Play
Nice.
open for Motorhead too.
Oh, so you saw that show? Yeah, I
I
couldn't
was
go to
at that
that one.
show.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, and they were a last minute, like somebody else was on the bill and canceled, and they got Poison
It
Idea,
was
and it was
supposed to be
great.
Chromex, I think, or something like that was the deal. Yeah, or
Maybe it was
something.
Gomez. I'm not sure, but anyway,
Yeah,
hey, I
or
got to see
somebody
Poison.
else was the opener in PI. Yeah, I
Yeah,
remember Jerry told me about it and a
yeah.
couple other
But I
people.
was like, I'm like, if memory serves, I got to see them with Pig, and I'm like, yeah,
Yeah, right at the end, I believe you're right.
yeah.
Or he was
So so that was cool. I'm glad I got to have that.
nice.
But yeah.
I
This I
saw
think
those.
was
Just
oh,
I was going to say I did. I was very lucky to see those guys a few times in
nice.
the late kind of. I think the first time I saw him in '86 was opening for somebody, or '87 maybe, was opening for COC, and that
Nice.
was on the it was either Animosity or it was the next sort of
Technocracy?
Technocracy. Yeah, that might have
There you
been the
go.
tour, '87,
Nice. That I
and
love that period for them. Oh my God. So good.
Spastic Blur opened up for him, which was
Oh,
Tito Matos and my friend Eric French. I went to high school with him. He was like a year older than me. He's
nice.
one of the guys that kind of turned me on to the local scene. I had a friend named Jim Cunningham also that I grew up with in Boy Scouts and went to school. And he was also like a year older. And Jim started singing when he was 16 for a metal band called Stormtrooper. He'd been in a
Okay.
couple little bands and stuff, but they were an older band, guys in like their 20s, older, but we thought they were like old guys. But they had already been playing a bunch of shows. Jim came in, they had a different singer named Joe, and Jim replaced him in '86, and they went right into like the studio and recorded a tape, which I still have here,
Nice.
a copy of. And they were they were a pretty cool band. So they were the first one I went to see. I went to see them a couple times in '86 after Jim had joined them, and they were really cool. Floyd Palmer was the guitarist. There was a couple brothers, Dave, and I forget the other Ragsdale brother now off the top of my head. I've talked to one of them a couple times when I was working on Rusted Metal, and and those guys were great. Floyd would just shred on guitar. It was really crazy stuff and pretty heavy, really heavy stuff. Which incidentally, I've tried to have. Floyd passed away, sadly. I talked to one of the Ragsdale brothers and I talked to Jim, but Jim's kind of been in and out of prison and had drugs and stuff. So he's just kind of out of it. Nothing really happened even with an interview. And I'd love to release that tape properly, but I don't think it probably is ever going to happen. But
sure,
I really like those guys. I met the Cruella guys through them. They played with them and got to be friends with Roger over the years. And of course, one of our Metalworx projects was a reissue early on of the first Cruella record on vinyl, which went really well. And they did some reunion shows and an in-store at Millennium stuff around it. So that was a lot of fun and kind of a full circle sort of thing. And in fact, he was the second guy I interviewed for Rusted Metal. So that's 2014, the fall of 2014.
So this is, I think, a good segue. Why don't we talk a little bit about your book, Rusted Metal, and like the genesis of that project is a massive tome. It's so exhaustive.
Well, here's the book, if you could see it at all.
We sure can.
It's 902 pages.
Wow.
And it's an 8.5 by 11. As you can see, it's a fairly large coffee table book. And so a friend of mine, Brian Nairn, who I'd met in like 1990, a couple years out of high school, he was doing the Portland record collector show, swap meet things.
Oh, okay.
And a buddy of mine worked for a record store called Groundhogs. That was in Portland. Used to be, they were on Division, and then they were on Powell Boulevard for a while, just a couple blocks up from my high school. I went to Cleveland High School there, and which, incidentally, a side note, same school that Jamie St. James and also from Black and Blue, and also Danny Kurth, the bass player of Wild Dogs, went to, like a decade before me. They graduated, 75, 76 or whatever. But that's where they started having bands together and stuff.
Sure.
Jet was an early band for them that was kind of a Kiss inspired thing. And some of those bands would, of course, evolve into Movie Star and then eventually Black and Blue, and then Wild Dogs kind of spawned out. There's a whole interesting, like, Portland metal scene definitely is very, I mean, Seattle is too, but Portland's very incestuous too.
Sure.
And a lot of people went to some same schools and different things and kind of connected up.
I mean, like, think of how many different bands Matt McCourt was in,
I know. He kind of did everything. Just, if you ask him, he played with everybody and everything.
Yeah.
Which I love that. He's a weirdo online. I think he has too big of a hands to type correctly or something. I don't know what's going on there. Kind of stream of conscious stuff. But in person, he's the nicest, coolest guy. I've always liked him.
I've never met Matt, but I know that in the '80s he was essentially the king of the Portland heavy metal scene. So
he came. So we did I saw him once in the '80s. So I was a little too young for getting into the early club stuff. So I unfortunately missed like the Rock Palace shows with Slayer and things like that. But I did, and Wild Dogs, even then, Matt would tell you they probably got a better reception in Seattle and California, San Francisco and stuff than they did here sometimes.
Sure.
In Portland, it was really tough. There was a lot of it was the kind of the bar circuits or you do your own sort of thing, which is similar to Seattle and other places. You book a rental hall or whatever. But once even they had, Starry Night happening in Pine Street and Satyricon and things, early 80s, 83 or whenever, they were pretty selective, and a lot of them would try to book, touring bands through, and they got priority, something that really unfortunately hasn't changed much nowadays.
It's hard to get things going in Portland, I'll tell you.
But I did see what I found out later on in August of '87, which was for kind of a birthday thing for me, because August 6th is mine. I went and saw a few days later, I think it was, I saw Wild Dogs with Haven, which I found out later on, both from the Wild Dogs and Haven guys, that was reunions for both of them, which, you never knew that kind of stuff. I just knew I wanted to see Wild Dogs, and that was the original lineup with Danny and Dean Castronovo and
Oh,
Jeff,
yeah.
and they were amazing. And I love
Sure.
those first couple of records. And I don't think the third was out, which I do like that third record. It's
Sure.
a different singer. But and interestingly, there'll be some people that a lot of us would probably pick the first record as the best of those.
Sure.
I do like the second one. It's a little more polished. They were trying to go more for the Dawkins sort of thing with chorusy vocals.
Sure.
But there's still good tracks on it.
Yeah.
And then the third with Michael Furlong, I think he's a great singer, and that album rips. It's really fast and
It's
great.
been a long time since I've heard these Wild Dogs
worth
records.
listening to.
I need to go check them out again.
Yeah, it's worth listening to, guys. They had elements of early speed metal, thrash metal kind of elements. Were one of the first, like them and Culprit in the Northwest, kind of doing that.
Culprit.
Mayhem was another.
Yeah,
band
Mayhem. I've heard that record.
And before that, there's some demos with a different singer before Matt. That stuff's really good. You can hear one of the tracks is on one of the Metal Massacre compilations. Was like their first appearance. I think it's "Tear Down the Walls."
Nice.
But
Duh.
I think they're still around. I bought one, I think, from Keith at Blackwater when it came out. But they did. I think it's the same one that did the overseas, that did the not Alone, it's somebody else, but they did the Wehrmacht reissues too.
Okay.
They did a double LP reissue of that Black Dragon Mayhem record, as well as included all the demos and stuff too.
Oh, nice.
With Nick Demichi. So yeah, and they have an interesting thing because Mayhem, of course, was a couple of the Poison Idea guys with Steve Hanford and aka Slayer Hippie, and Eric on guitar, Eric Olson. And I think Craig Lauer.
I knew his son.
Too, yeah. Craig also went to my high school too, Cleveland. Yeah. So, but yeah, I just having grown up in that, my parents were from Seattle. My grandparents lived right next door to each other, so we went up a bunch of times over the years. I went to a lot of the record stores. I didn't get to go to shows till later on. My dad wouldn't take me or anything, and I didn't know anybody. I would have been there by myself up there. So most of the stuff I saw was down in Portland. But once I got into the club stuff, then that was the crossover time, 86, 87.
Nice.
I was not only seeing Accused and Poison Idea and Wehrmacht and as the prior mentioned Spastic Blur, which those guys were great. Eric Burger King Olsen.
Oh man.
And those guys were that was so interesting where these bands came out of. Like there was the guys from Wehrmacht, who those guys were pretty cool. I saw those guys open up for Slayer.
Nice.
At Starry Night on the South of Heaven tour.
Oh wow.
Got to meet a couple of the Slayer guys, which was pretty cool. And
nice.
I saw the Wehrmacht guys a few times. I saw Poison Idea a few times. Jerry used to come over to my friend's house that sold weed. Sorry, Jerry.
Nice.
I don't think he cares, but he's sobered out too. But
sure.
He would come over and he was like the coolest guy. He would give us tickets to shows. I got to see a couple shows for free.
Nice.
I saw he gave me the first pressing of that EP that had Hangover, Heart Attack, and the Damn's New Rose cover. He gave me one of those. Wow. And he was just the coolest guy. He would always come over with a fifth of Potter's whiskey or vodka, which was like the cheapest crap.
Yeah.
$12 bottle or whatever it was then. And we would always be drinking like Lowenbrau's or Mikkel. Some sort of imports. We're like, no, that's okay. Thanks. But yeah, he was really cool. I went to one of their parties once, which was pretty wild. And Tom Pink was just in the back room, just cranking on guitar. And I was just like, this guy's amazing on guitar. He could play like everything.
Sure.
And he knew everything too about music and stuff. Really, really a cool guy.
Wow.
And so that was just kind of cool growing up. And, I was just some goofy teenager. They didn't, many, many years later, I sat down with Jerry a few years back, had some master tapes that I gave him from a friend. And and he wanted to review the TKO record we did with Northwest Metalworx and stuff. And we had a nice lunch and talked. And I knew he didn't really know my name or remember me. He's like met a ton of people, but he kind of remembered. He's like, yeah, you guys were the kids hanging out at Wendell's. I remember you guys.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's cool. Yeah, I was. And so, like
sweet.
I said, always the nicest guy. And
nice.
Just seeing all those bands really cool. Like I mentioned, Gargoyle, I loved. They were kind of like the Iron Maiden or Queensryche of Portland, we called them, and they were just fantastic and cool.
I was just listening to that record, so yeah.
Oh, many years later, they asked me to write. I'd interviewed Dave Kendall for Rusted Metal, and the guys at Doug and Dave and the guys asked me to write the liner notes for that reissue that Cult Metal Classics did, which I was honored to do, and that was a lot of fun. I interviewed all four guys, including Tim Lackman on the phone, who's still around down in LA and stuff. And,
and Tim Lackman, he played in Rob Halford's band.
He didn't. His brother actually.
Oh, Pat Lackman. Fuck, yeah, that's right.
So that's right. Pat joined Gargoyle towards the end. The last show I saw with them in '90 in Portland, which was a weird bill because it was Dead Conspiracy, Savior. I think there was another thrash death sort of band, and Gargoyle. So it was kind of like, well, Gargoyles, they were heavy enough, but it was definitely the other bands, which I also saw a few other times.
James, was the other band Victims of Internal Decay?
It might have been. I saw those guys once somewhere too. I can't remember.
Because I remember they were like, they started out as like crossover thrash and kind of went death metal. Yeah.
Yeah, they had an earache, I think, or at least a distro or something like that with earache. Those guys were pretty cool. Eugene band. I saw them once in Portland. I think they played Starry Night and Pine Street.
Yeah. I saw one of the members. One of them is in not Dreams of Damnation. I went down to the Res Fest and Damage Overdose. One of those guys plays in Damage Overdose.
Interesting. They're still kind of running around.
Yeah. I did want to ask about your Metal Church book, Beyond the Black. First of all, what is the best way to pronounce Kurt's last name? Is it Vanderhoof? Vanderhoof?
Yeah, Vanderhoof.
Hoof? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I've never been entirely sure. Okay.
It's what's
which emphasis do I put the syllable on? Or what syllable I put the emphasis on?
Scandinavian descent.
Oh, okay.
Is the
but be Dutch, wouldn't it? Vander?
There's an interesting. So, and again, thank you for giving the nod to the book and picking it up. And
it's really great read, man. I'm really enjoying it. Really enjoying it.
Well, so part of like with just going back a little bit to Rusted Metal, the whole impetus of that was I knew this guy Brian for a long time. I met him at record shows, and we'd stayed in touch. I came up and did shopped his store in Tacoma. He had for a little while, Inner Groove, which he still has as a kiosk in Puyallup in the 3rd Street Antiques.
Oh wow!
It's almost like a big record store inside of there. If you get out that way, check it out. It's got a lot of great stuff in there.
I've been to Puyallup once.
He hosted with a buddy, Tim. He put on a few record shows up there, and I came up and did a couple, and I shopped his store a couple times when I could get up there. And he would always come do the Portland shows and Eugene and stuff. And we just stayed in touch, kind of, friends, connect. And so I was working, I used to do a horror magazine called Dark Discoveries, which I did for almost a decade, and I sold. Oh, wow. That was kind of my impetus in getting into the publishing and editing world. I'd been submitting a couple stories and articles, had a couple little things I sold and or got placed in things for copies or whatever. And I took a couple writing workshops and really got a lot of great advice about a lady who'd also started a publishing imprint and kind of was republishing her books that had done really well. And that kind of got the bug going because I'd always wanted to do a magazine. And when I was a teenager, I'd make fake projects for art, would be like a metal mag or a horror magazine. Those were the two things, like I mentioned before, kind of my first loves. And,
Posers Must Die was almost a zine. It was very close to being a zine.
But then we realized it would definitely fly as that, I think, for sure, an old school zine.
Yeah.
So I did that, and I did some book projects, and I met a lot of people in the industry, and that kind of blew up. And we, starting out the gate, we were paying like amateur rates, and getting name people contributing, and uh, magazines were kind of on the outs, and we did some things to be creative. And I had some friends come on and kind of help revamp it and make it more like a Fangoria Rumor type of thing.
Oh,
That
yeah.
helped for a
Nice.
while, and that was kind of our biggest period because we combined a lot of media content. And my friends Jason and Sonny Brock, shout out to them. They were instrumental in helping me kind of turn that thing around and work on projects. And they so we kept that going for a while, and then it just kind of, we had, with borders closing and some
Yeah.
distributors going bankrupt and things, kind of caught us in that. And I ended up selling
Yeah.
it to a guy who was a newer book publisher, and he kept it going for a while. I helped him out to start with, stepped away. I was working already with a friend who took over his dad's book publishing company, Dark Regions. And then
Okay.
while I was doing that, helping him part time, and we worked on book projects. We did one with Clive Barker, with Mick
Wow.
Garris, which was really cool, called The Body Book. Did a
Oh.
couple, did a book with Jack Ketchum,
Oh.
couple Richard Lehman books. So, we had some different stuff, and that was a lot of fun. Chris Morey's a really cool guy. Sadly, shut his publishing imprint down too. Kind of had
Wow.
run into problems as well as after about a
Sure.
decade. But during the time I was working for him, I started the idea of music book. And
Yeah.
with Dark Discoveries, we'd done a couple music, horror, and rock type related things where we had like Alice Cooper and Rob
Oh,
Zombie,
sure.
stuff like people like that in there and stuff.
Yeah.
And those were really fun. And I was like, well, why doesn't anybody ever do a book on the Northwest metal scene? We had those
Yeah.
grunge books, and Mark Stan did a cool Portland punk book, and I'm just like,
Sure.
where's Jeff Gilbert and some of these guys that wrote for the Rocket and stuff? Why don't they do a
Yeah.
book? And as it turned out, there was a couple friends that James told that helped us with the book. Brett Hartman,
Nice.
Jeff Ramus from Panic. Those guys were actually kind of thinking about doing something similar, but just
Oh, Panic. Yeah.
never really. Jeff is a really good writer too. He's done some
Oh,
books, and he
yeah.
actually contributed a couple things, and as well as an interview, he contributed a couple essays on Culprit and the Wild Dogs, which are in Rusted Metal, that are really cool.
Nice. Very cool.
Saw those guys a couple times. Panic back in the day, they were pretty awesome thrash band. I saw them
Sure.
once. The second time I saw Sanctuary in Portland.
Oh,
Panic ended opening up. It was supposed to be Fates Warning, who unfortunately canceled, but the
sure.
Panic guys came down and
Yeah.
they knocked it out of the park. And
Nice.
Sanctuary, I saw, that was the second time. The first time with Megadeth. And
Nice.
so, yeah, I mean, just a lot of that stuff was going on. Concerts were cheap. And so
Yeah.
all these years later, I kept a lot of stuff. Brian's a big archivist. He had a huge collection, and still does, of flyers and all kinds of different records and CDs and cassettes. We had a lot of demo cassettes between us, and different
Nice.
pictures and things we collected. And so we had a lot of memorabilia. And I reached out to Brian in the summer of 2014 about working on this Rusted Metal project. And he was game. He's like, that's a great idea. He at one point had been sort of cobbling together an Andrew Wood biography he was going to write before
Okay.
the guy who did the documentary, and now the book's finally out. He
Oh,
ended up helping him instead, but Brian was game for a book project. And so he and I started doing it. A mutual friend of ours, Jim Sutton, that was a Northwest guy,
okay.
grew up in Spokane in the East Side. He was a friend from record shows, and he was interested in contributing. He was a writer and had done some stuff on the in some different magazines and done a book and stuff. And he came in, and then also James Tolan, who was, I'd met,
Oh,
I
yes.
think, once, but Brian knew him pretty well. James was a big archivist and is up in, he was in Kirkland. Now he's in
Yeah.
Homish, but he was interested in helping. He wasn't a writer, but he helped a lot with interviewing people and contributed a ton of material. He opened a
Nice.
lot of doors with people we didn't know that were musicians. That was very helpful. The TKO guys would talk to us, and Overlord, and Lipstick with, those guys. I didn't know any of them. And
Sure.
Brian didn't really know him. He'd met some of the Queensryche guys, all of them a few times, have been involved with that stuff. And he'd seen different shows, Taste of Iron, various ones over the years. He saw
Sure.
TKO in like 82 and in like the Evergreen Ballroom, I think he said. So he'd
Okay.
seen a lot of stuff. He was also a big fan of Power Pop and like the Heats and just a lot of that scene where he went to Astor Park and a lot of those places. And Stripes was a Tacoma, kind of Duran Duran of Tacoma.
Oh, okay.
People called him. He liked those guys a lot and knew him.
Sure.
He's friends with Girl Trouble and saw the first show. So he's pretty broad on his palette. But Brian was always turning me on. Like, nice. I knew Sanctuary and had seen him, but I hadn't really I just heard about Nevermore, and he gave me like a promo CD pretty early on from them, like Century Media. He was working a lot with getting stuff from them. And so he was kind of always turning me on to bands I didn't know. And he was pretty knowledgeable and is. And so we started doing that in the fall of, as we were doing research and compiling, and I was starting to write a lot of it. And I was the main writer. I would mock out different things. And originally it was going to be a chapter book was the idea, kind of like we did with the bios, but it became pretty obvious, at least maybe a couple years into it, after I'd gotten a lot of interviews and stuff with people, that it just, why am I going to write a chapter book about places I never was and things I never saw? It just didn't make any sense. Sure. And it just made more sense as a reference guide. And we're getting all these bios developed and doing all these different interviews with people, which we all worked on with people together and separately. And we ended up with almost 100 interviews. There's over 600, I think like 630 band bios.
Oh my gosh.
It spans from 1970 to 1995, which I did extend it. I was going to cut it at 90, but I extended it to 95 because there was so much of a change. With grunge becoming popular and a lot of the alternative stuff, Faith No More, Jane's Addictions, a lot of these things that kind of, you had bands going more funk and hip hop elements and experimental, and just all this different stuff was coming in. A lot of the punk rock thing was coming in with the fusion and stuff, and things changed to where eventually, like locally, people wouldn't book, a lot of the same venues wouldn't book metal bands anymore, and so people they changed, or they broke up, or they And so by 95, you saw, Forced Entry's gone, Panic's gone, Sanctuary's gone, which became Nevermore. But all that stuff had kind of, Metal Church is gone. A lot of that stuff was just happening. I'm like, well, it was harder and harder to find gigs, listings, and posters of any metal bands. And so I'm like, well, that kind of seems like you see this whole arc of the early days where you had bands that were influenced by Grand Funk and Black Sabbath and Zeppelin, Mountain, and whoever doing kind of this early wave of it. And there was definitely some bands. In fact, some evolved into TKO and other bands as time went on. But there was that. So you could see that. And a lot of the people were still around. So we could interview people and get information, even if they didn't want to do an interview. And that became a 5-year project, putting that together and writing it, and then another year and a half to edit it.
Oh, I would imagine so.
It was a long trip, and during the time after we started that book, and I'd interviewed a handful of people at the point. Brian and I were getting a couple friends, like, I had Roger DiCarlo from Cruella, as I mentioned earlier, was looking for somebody to help him reissue his first record on vinyl, like in the US, because they'd had a German release for the couple records on what was US Metal, which was the Shark Records guy.
Oh, sure.
Axel Thube. Yeah, they had Doro Pesh and Sepultura license and different things released. So Wehrmacht, they did the couple import versions license. So
go ahead.
I was just going to say, so he was looking for somebody to do a nice vinyl reissue. We'd met the Whiskey Stick guys. I interviewed Mark, the bassist.
Oh, sure.
I knew about their couple tracks from compilations back in the day that I had. They were on the KJON's first compilation in
Oh,
1980.
the KGON album. Yes.
Which we ended up being one of the records we did was with the Whiskey Stick guys. That was
That's
like our
funny.
second or third release, I believe. Yeah, our third
Yeah.
release. And those guys were a great Astoria, Oregon band,
Man. Oh,
influenced
man.
hugely by Deep Purple.
That is cool.
And so, yeah, if you like Deep Purple, old Uriah Heep,
I
stuff like that, they're
love
right
Uriah
in that.
Heep.
Uriah Heep.
It's like Deep Purple with like the Boston singer singing for it. Kind of always reminds
Okay, I
Carl
can
a
dig
little
that.
bit.
I can
Yeah.
Yeah,
handle that,
I
I
think if
think.
you like that stuff. And those guys were super cool.
Right on.
R.I.P. Carl. He passed away a
R.I.P.
few months
Carl.
back, unfortunately, of cancer, and
Oof.
we like those guys a lot. And so that was one of the ones, so we had a couple people. Terry Gorel, as I mentioned earlier, Heir Apparent approached me about if I knew anybody. He'd had some reissues and demo releases and things with like Hellion Records.
Yeah.
Around 99, 2000, 2001 range or so, and then a couple reissues and things on CD as time went on. And we ended up doing what became our first record, was the Heir Apparent's Graceful Inheritance. That was our first reissue,
Yes. Yeah.
first record we did.
Yeah. And I want to ask you, James, and forgive me, for Northwest Metalworx, is it more a situation of you approaching bands like, hey, we'd really like to get this old material back in the market, or is it they're coming to you like, hey, can you facilitate this for us? What is this like? I mean,
it's both. It's both, definitely. But at the first, when we were just working on the book, it was people approaching us.
okay.
And Brian and I, we grew up loving vinyl. We collected for a long time. I sadly sold a big chunk of my very large collection throughout
Sure.
like mid 90s to mid 2000s. So I was down to kind of, when I started the label again, I probably had 150 records or something.
Oh, man.
Some I couldn't part with, a couple things I picked up. I have a lot more again. But of course, as well as producing them. But
Yeah.
no, we just thought it was a cool idea. And we're like,
Yeah.
vinyl's kind of starting to make a comeback. We were buying reissues and things were coming out. And we're like, wow, this is kind of cool. People are collecting it again. I'd been going to record shows. I'd started doing a record collector show with a friend in town that had a store. Corey Strite had a store, Cool Store Classics, for about a decade. He and I started doing a record show a couple years before I started working on the Rusted Metal book, year or two before, that kind of thing.
Okay.
We did the Kelso Longview show, which I still do here.
Okay.
And we were just seeing, kind of, Brian and I were seeing, yeah, maybe there's something to this and people would be interested. And so we decided to form the label.
Yeah.
And Jim Sutton, who was helping the book, came in a little bit after the fact, and he wanted to invest and help us get it off the ground and be a partner.
Nice.
And he was pretty awesome. And we went in May of 2015. I saw this like YouTube thing somebody posted on Facebook for like Willamette Week's channel or whatever, and they had this feature on this pressing plant that opened up, Cascade Record Pressing, in Oak Grove. And we're like, I was getting a couple quotes from, Pirates and whoever at the time. And
yeah,
I was like, wow, these guys are right in Oregon. We should go down there. And so Brian and I drove down and we met the owner, Mark Rainey, who's a good friend still. He's a friend, and we've worked with him ever since. We love those guys. And our first rep was Amy from Telegraph Mastering. Still work with those. Adam and Amy are awesome. Shout out to those guys, definitely. And Jeff Troon, who was, also at Cascade, the kind of the mechanic guy, but also partner. And those guys were just cool. And they had 6 presses and one up and going. Nice. And Jeff was working on restoring more of them and getting them back into production. And so I think Mississippi Eric had done a couple records by the time we'd come down there, and maybe another label or two. They were some early ones, and they just really had, I think they opened just like a couple months before, got everything operational, and just had started to do projects. By the time we did the first record, which ended up being the Heir Apparent one, and we started at like in November of 2015, they already had like I think 3 presses going, and they were getting the 4th one. And by the time
Nice.
the record was done, they had 5 of the 6 operational, eventually all 6.
Nice.
And we love those guys. A lot of it's we can drive down there, but we like local too. So it's kind of cool to support some people there. And like I said, they're great. Quality control has always been good.
Very
really good. We use a couple others. Like I use a local printer here for some inserts for LPs and different things.
Yeah.
We've used disc makers for CDs a lot. Atomic also for a couple different things in Salem now.
Nice.
So we try to, jackets, we've had to kind of go around to different people. There wasn't anybody that really, kind of worked for that. But mostly we try to do a lot of it, locally in the Northwest, and that's kind of cool. And
yeah, I would say so.
Yeah, so we started that. We did the Heir Apparent record first. Initially we were going to do the old school compilation, which this is actually our. I'm sold out of the first one we did, but this is the third. This came out a couple years back.
Oh, very cool.
And so we like to do these comps too, kind of like the Metal Massacres and and stuff
That's
like
really
that.
Cool.
This one actually has a lot of Oregon bands on it, as well as some Washington ones, Coven and Rottweiler, that we've got a new record.
Very cool. We reviewed and loved the Coven reissue. That collection was so cool.
I appreciate you guys doing a review. I'm glad you loved it.
Oh man, and wow, it's like we didn't even know this material existed. Like this was Christmas, we
wanted to work with those guys for a while, but they unfortunately have a really bad. They don't have rights to some of their to their records that came out, sadly.
Yeah.
They just really had some bum deals, and they've been kind of sold around to between a couple labels, and we were trying to find a way to work it out to do something of a reissue, which it just was kind of dragging on for a long time. And, the Coven guys we've known for a while. I interviewed Dean Babbitt, the founding guitarist, and Paul Hash. That was the other guitarist in the heyday.
Yeah.
And also Eric Close, that's been their current bass player for a decade or whatever. Now it's quite a while.
Yeah.
Brian and I interviewed them in Everett for Rusted Metal, and we got to know those guys. And Neil Babbitt, the drummer, just a super cool guy as well. Jamie, shout out to Jamie Carter's great singer, super cool guy. All those guys are really cool. And we really wanted to work with them and help them get something out there. And so this was a project that's been in the works for kind of like a handful of years or whatever.
Yeah.
We just couldn't. We wanted to reissue the second record. The rights are it just wasn't happening. And
Go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead. That's okay.
I interviewed either Neil or Dean back in 2007.
Cool. Yeah.
And it was somebody has the master tapes for Death Walks Behind You or the rights, but they want $10,000, and it's like, well, we can't give you that.
I heard 3,500 from Dave Horton. He was trying to do it when he had the rights to when he had Everrat and stuff. He'd had the rights to their first and third record, and he'd done a reissue on CD 2 decades ago now, whatever it was.
Yeah.
But no vinyl, and no, a lot of people love, especially Blessed. That was the one everybody had to have a bigger distro. And
I have Blessed, but man, Death Walks Behind You is
that's a really great record. It was hard to find when it came out. I don't think they got the greatest distro. I had a cassette for a long time of it that I bought when it came out.
Yeah, never on vinyl.
It took me a long time to find a CD. It never had a vinyl release.
Yeah, I had it on cassette too. So yeah, at least it's on streaming.
Yeah, well,
thank goodness for that.
We wanted to try, but Portnow had told me that he had. So I guess when Medusa folded, which was their label for that, to have Blessed, that Rhino bought their whole catalog, and so he said he went directly to him and tried to get the rights, and they wanted like $3,500 for a license fee, which is really high for just a reissue where you're going to do like 1,000 copies or less, like we did. It just didn't make sense for us.
It's like you might make the $3,500
make no money
back,
for anybody. Band or why do it? And
I mean, it's one thing to have it out at least, but you look.
Yeah, I mean, we need money. We're not. We're not about that. Like that's not our motivation, really. But that said, if it doesn't make money to pay for the thing, it's kind of hard to do the demo. And then we don't get
Exactly.
anything for any of the bands. And the whole point is
Yeah.
to kind of help these guys out too. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I understand that, James.
yeah,
But yeah, and it's just one of these things. Sometimes you take the deal that's there, and sometimes it's a
yeah.
real bummer of a deal. Like
But
you're,
Yeah.
yeah,
you know.
it's a common story, unfortunately, and a sad one. But
Oh yeah.
but
Uh,
the with the Demons though was kind of a cool thing because much like, and the War Babies one did, the one that we did with those guys was kind of similar, Vault, where it just ended up blossoming into this really cool thing from what was originally kind of, I mean, it would have been cool even like the original idea, but what came out of the vaults, so to speak, no pun intended, just was amazing. And so with the Coven thing, for example, that you brought that
yeah.
up,
Yeah.
Dean had the four demos, which were the first things that was the first thing they ever recorded at a small studio.
Yeah.
It's a home studio that Rick Vaughn had, I believe. He did also Overlord recorded there, and Shadow
Nice.
and a few other bands. And so that was when they were just a three-piece when it first formed.
Oh, okay.
Dean, Jay on vocals and bass as well,
Oh, really?
um, and a guy named Ward Whistler on drums, who was a friend of theirs.
Okay.
And Ward didn't stick around very long because I think he moved to California was what happened.
Oh, okay.
Neil was learning drums, the younger brother, and he ended up coming in. And Paul was writing with him pretty early on, but he couldn't really play guitar very well, he told us. He was just learning. But he had these really great ideas that were kind of like Motley Crue meets Slayer sort of stuff, as he put it.
Interesting.
And so he's got a couple co-credits on those early, but they're really earlier versions. As you guys noticed in the review, and I did it chronologically. We did it because it kind of made sense the way the record with the tracks and when they were
Yeah.
from. So it's more of sort of a historical rather than like a greatest hits or like let's put the best stuff first, and then some people do
Yeah.
like that. But
Yeah.
so you guys notice the difference. Those
Yeah.
four tracks. There's two earlier raw versions of songs that ended up on their debut, and then two unreleased tracks. And they're very much more New Wabam influenced, definitely.
Sure.
They're kind of an older school metal. It's not really the thrash metal thing that they
Yeah.
became yet. So it's just more of a kind of, wow, these are cool. They exist. They got cleaned up. They sound really good. So it's just for historical purposes. That was kind of cool to include those because nobody ever heard them. They'd never been released, sort of thing. And then we were looking at live stuff to try to see what we could find and use. And we even tried to record some stuff at Erebus. Those guys helped us, but it didn't, there was some issues and it didn't quite work, unfortunately.
Oh, okay.
Then they wanted to record a couple new songs with Russ Stefanovic when he was in the lineup for a bit, the bitter end guitarist, and which they did. And in the process of this and trying to find live material or see what else we could find, Neil had found a tape in his closet in his archive stuff where they found out it was these recordings they went in to record, and they couldn't remember the studio, unfortunately. They would get money from Medusa and record the second album at Triad, which was one of the bigger studios that Queensryche and a bunch of other bands recorded at. So, but they didn't think it was there. But the whole story was that they recorded these demos for Steve Sinclair from Combat, who had started. MCA, MCA had hired him to over to their label and gave him his own label, which was Mechanic's record. And that's where Dream Theater, as we were talking about earlier, their first record was on that label. Bang Tango, Violence was on that label. They had some cool stuff on there, and so they were looking for metal bands, and I think Portnow or somebody told them about it. And this was before they got signed to Medusa, so it was sort of in that period. They recorded all this original material, which weirdly enough, only two of the songs we put it on there on the CD as a bonus track because it was two of the songs that ended up on the second album, Death Walks Behind You, were together like kind of like
Yeah.
Cruella and a couple other bands almost have these sort of different songs kind of jammed together. And it was like that. So we put that on the CD as a bonus because it wouldn't fit on the vinyl. We wanted to have as much original material on there that people hadn't heard. And it's amazing. Those guys sent me that stuff. I'm like, oh, this is what we need right here. This is fantastic.
Yeah.
This is just you guys that, firing on all cylinders at that point. 1987, they'd had, I don't even know if they had the first record out by the time they recorded that stuff. They weren't sure if it was right before or right after. But
oh man,
all the originals. So the Blessed of the Black was actually recorded in like 86, and they had a tape.
Yeah,
That they
I've seen
did
that.
first, which you've seen some hand drawn artwork, and that's basically, it might have been remixed a little bit for the record. I forget what Dave Portnow said, but it's basically that. And Blessed then was released in like late 87.
Yeah.
And then, reissued like a couple years later on Medusa. But yeah, so this material, I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. And so we got super lucky and then we put a couple newer songs just because the new lineup could have something. They're working on a new record.
Oh, good.
It gives them a little taste of that for everybody. And then you get a bit of the history of the band. Kind of.
Well, and it's
then,
like, And Jamie's been with them so long now. It's like, come on, buddy, let's get him on an album.
2012, I think, or something. He and Eric, if I remember right off the top of my head. So
I mean,
over a decade.
Look, every Covens show I've seen, he's been the guy. Okay, so
yeah, he's great.
I mean, I think Jamie is really, really good. I think they really lucked out in finding him. But it's like Jay Clark was Jay Clark was maybe the greatest thrash metal vocalist of all. I mean, like, wow, he could do it, man. He could really do it. And I've got like a I've got like a videotape of like 2 Coven concerts from the 80s.
Oh wow, I'd love to see that. Oh,
I would love to show it to you.
Coming to your house, Nicholas.
This was an eBay find. I got this in like 2007, and this is something I'll never part with. But it's like an interview.
Awesome.
It's an
I wonder
interview.
if the guys even have that. Wow.
I don't know. It's an interview they did for like some public access show, and then I think I want to say 2 whole shows. One of which is the album release. One of which is the album release show for Death Walks Behind You, I think.
Let's connect you up with the Coven guys because they may well be interested in putting that out or doing something.
Well, it should. This fucking should be a DVD.
Yeah,
and the quality's good. So the quality's good. So I bought it from some woman named Tiffany on eBay, and they remembered sending this tape to somebody like that was maybe going to put something together for them in the Midwest or something, and it never happened.
Yeah. Wow, that's cool.
And so, but I have it. I have this artifact.
They did tour around a little bit. That on that tour, I saw him.
Yeah,
that's the one time I saw him with that original lineup was 88 or 89. I think it was 89.
Nice.
At a metal ball in Portland at Starry Night with Cruella was on the bill. Mirror, which was some cool guys who were kind of a prog metal thing.
Okay.
There was a bunch of other bands. Oh, Teacher's Pet was on the bill, which was which also is kind of a prog metal band, like in the Fates Warning sort of realm. But they had their image was, and I've talked to a couple of the guys I talked to for Rusted Metal. They're really cool, the singer and guitarist. But I think the image and name didn't really quite fit the type of music they were playing. It was one of those situations where,
yes.
If you see I had the demo tape. I think I've still got around here. They had a couple tapes and recorded a bunch of stuff, and it's like this fantastic kind of Gargoyle Fates Warning type of stuff too, with a little bit of proggy kind of metal elements, Iron Maiden influence and stuff. And yet it looked like kind of a Van Halen sort of goofy party metal, Teacher's Pet type of image that you could just imagine. And I'm like, that doesn't really seem like it fits, but they were really good live. I saw. But Coven was fantastic. They were I think they were the headliner, and that was the first time they played Portland. The guys told me, I brought the little handbill and ticket I still had from it and showed them.
Oh, wow.
And so they played like Chicago, and they played in Canada a few times, and they played around California and different places. So they did. Yeah, I think the Texas thing, they'd said there was supposed to be something. Of course, that Texas is pretty notorious, especially in the 80s. They were really big for metal. Like
Oh,
Queensryche did really, really well with their
oh
first
yeah.
EP.
I mean, there's so many great thrash bands from
Yeah,
Texas, man. I mean, Rigor Mortis, Gamma
Metal
Side.
Church guys played there
Yeah.
a few times, and were really embraced. The radio, they had a couple metal stations in like San Antonio and stuff
Yeah.
that really
Nice.
embraced that stuff. Yeah, Kim Harris, the Queensryche's first manager, told Brian and I in the interview we did with him um, that alone they sold like 20,000 copies of that in Texas alone, just
Jeez,
Wow.
of
man.
that first EP, that debut EP from
Well,
Queens. So
that's
they
pretty
really did
great.
embrace him, and they played there a
Nice.
few times.
Nice.
So yeah, I think that's always really key, is what sort of support do you have, in
Yeah.
your area from radio. And fortunately enough, we had that in Seattle and Portland. We had,
Nice.
KJUN played metal.
Wow, did
They had
they?
they had 101 KRCK, I think it was back then. It was metal for a while, and they changed
Okay.
the format. But
Yeah.
Q105. Do you remember Q105?
that was it. That was it.
There we go.
Before, I think it was 105. I think you're right. It was originally it was KRCK, and then it was something else. I used to have like a sticker of them. But after, I think by the time I was like, when I was a freshman, they were still definitely playing metal, because I heard Queensryche's EP on there in the summer of '85.
Yeah.
They were playing Black and Blue when they came out and pushing that stuff, and Wild Dogs and stuff. All that stuff. Rail would get played on the radio in Portland.
Oh, wow.
Seattle was playing a lot of the local stuff. TKO.
That's cool.
So yeah, so just a lot of that, and with the so yeah, I mean, I knew a lot of this stuff, and so did Brian, and so it just sort of all spawned out of that, and with the Rusted Metal book, and people really liked that, and had a lot of cooperation from people, and that opened up a lot of doors with the record release stuff. So we started getting to know. That's a lot of it. I think it's a lot of it's just in business in general, it's relationships. I think that's
absolutely. Absolutely, James.
We started this, and I worked at, like I said, I worked in the publishing industry for, a couple decades, and before I started this, and that's the one thing that carried me through, was I was honest and I had integrity. We dealt with people fairly. We were transparent. And so that's the same. And because of that, people still like me in the horror industry. I kind of stepped away from a lot of that, just because I got kind of burned out, to be honest, just doing it a long time. And, when my friend's business folded, I was kind of like, I like the music stuff more. I like the people a lot more overall. There's some really cool people, don't get me wrong, in the horror fields, but there was also, in the writing world, there's a lot of competition and backbiting, and a lot of negativity.
Yeah.
I imagine
I just didn't like that stuff at all. And so, but with the music stuff, we try to do exactly the same thing. And so far, so good. Everybody seems to like us. And,
good.
And what we've done for the most part, it's a variety. So your taste may vary on, we've done glam rock, and we've done, like I said, 70s hard rock and metal, proto metal type stuff.
But overall, you're doing a really cool thing, James, and I think it's great that Northwest Metalworx is out there putting these things out, and like now I can check out Rottweiler. All the times I saw Metal Church, he was Ronnie Monroe was the singer in Metal Church.
Oh, nice!
And I knew I knew of Rottweiler, but now I can actually check out Rottweiler. So thank you. Because back then you couldn't find that shit. You couldn't find that shit back then.
They didn't. They had a tape. There was supposed to be some impetus for, like, Everrat guy Portnow had interest in. I don't think he was really up and going with his label, where he had any money or anything, maybe. And so it didn't happen. And they had some interest for some labels, and it didn't happen. Sometimes with bands, I can't remember if that was Rottweiler's case, but I know with like Shadow guys, who I've gotten to be friends with a couple of those guys, and had the fortune to interview Mike McCready, that was the guitarist for Shadow. He was one of the guys in Rusted Metal. The Friel brothers, Rick and Chris Friel, couple super awesome guys. We've gotten to know those guys. They're really, really super cool guys. All of those guys, and kind of interconnected with each other throughout the years in the Seattle scene, and different incarnations. And those guys had told me that they they were offered to, because they played with Metal Church and they played with
Sure.
TKO and all these different bands, and they had the offer to be on the Northwest Metal Fest compilation and turn Jeff Gilbert down, which was Metal Church's
Oh,
first appearance in Mace, and Overlord was on it, and
those comps kind of help make a lot of those bands.
it really
That's
did. I mean, a
not
lot
a
of those
good move.
bands,
Yeah.
the one track they ever had was on that, and you see things later on where, like our friend Andre at Lost Realm Records, he's put out Koda Khan's complete recordings, Stato's complete recordings,
Yeah.
Strychnine, because one track was on Metal Meltdown, whatever, or Northwest
Yeah.
Metal Fest or
It's
Metal
like,
Massacre.
well, it's like didn't Mace is on one of those with Marching Sacrifice. I know it's a misprint. Uh
It's actually Sappho Fights is the
is it?
correct.
It really
Yeah.
is? Okay.
I interviewed both Dave Hillis, the guitarist, and Vern White, and I
Okay.
think we cleared that
Okay.
misconception. That one of them, the where it says Marching Sacrifice is actually
Oh,
the,
well, my
the
bad. Well,
wrong.
see, it's such a
But
weird story. But they use that same track on one of the Metal Massacres too. But like that's how I
they
know
are on that
Mace.
too. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's like, yeah, then I
They
got
had
the
two
Evil and
records.
Good.
Yep,
The
Evil
Evil
and
and Good.
Good, and their first record was on Coma, which was the Ground Zero guy, Jeff Gilbert, Brain
Yes.
Pain, and all the stuff that Jeff
Yeah.
did over the years. He his label, after Willie went more for focusing on management with Metal Church, and Jeff tried to continue on with the label thing after they'd done that comp and the Metal Church record. And
Yeah.
of course, Coma had the Mace debut record, Strike, which was Ken Mary played drums on
Oh,
that.
Ken Mary.
The
I
local
just saw
guy.
him last year. Saw him
Yeah,
in Flotsam and Jetsam last year.
I saw
So
that show too. Was
yeah,
that at Hawthorne Theater?
I was there. Yeah,
I was
Chase
there.
and I were
I was
there.
backstage hanging out with
Chase and I were there.
him.
We got to
That's
meet
awesome.
we got to meet AK after. He was very
I
cool
didn't
to us.
see you, so I
Yep.
don't know what. But it was a pretty good crowd, so it's hard
It
to
Yeah.
was
see
okay.
everybody.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah,
Small world.
that's
James, I was wondering if Chase and I are kind of running a bit short on time. I was wondering
okay.
if we
Oh,
could
sure, sure.
I was wondering if we could segue and talk some about Soldiers of Steel Fest,
Yeah.
of
Oh,
which
yeah.
you are one of the organizers. I mean, you've got an incredible lineup that you've put together. My first question was there anyone you wanted real bad or were trying so bad to get and just couldn't make it happen, like Metal Church?
Stars couldn't align. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so Metal Church is kind of on a hiatus. They are supposedly working on a new record. Rick
Okay.
did tell me, I hope he doesn't get mad, but he told me him and Kurt are writing. And
Okay.
yeah, so it was
I-
announced kind of softly. Kurt, I think, threw that out there a few months back, and it's just a picture of him and Rick. So there's been a
Oh,
lot of
okay.
speculation. But they are, yeah, and Kurt had said that did have plans to do a new record. He always has multiple projects, and so even when we were hanging out with him and was it a couple of years ago now, when they did the tour for the record with Mark Lopez, that new album,
Oh, right.
Congregation of Annihilation. They played Portland and they played Bremerton. We went and saw him at Bremerton and hung out with sound check and stuff with everybody, and
Nice.
handed Kurt a check for the cover photo we licensed from him for the Metal Church book, which
Yeah.
really,
Which I'll hold up again.
awesome. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
I think so just a side note on that real quick, with the reason that we really wanted to use that, and we were able to fortunately work that out with Kurt, as he's the Metal Church guy and has the rights and everything.
Oh, yeah.
And was we couldn't figure out what band lineup would you use on the cover, and we had some different ideas.
Oh, right.
Brian had an idea where it would be a big Kurt, either a silhouette with the bald head or just him with all these little guys underneath him for all these different lineups, because he's the constant.
Sure. Oh, yeah. Of course.
Of that band in San Francisco through the whole thing, one way or
he
the
is
other.
Metal Church, that's for sure.
He
Yeah.
is. He really
Yeah.
is. Sound, identity, the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you put he puts down riffs on a record, it sounds like Metal Church.
Yeah. It's true. I mean, that's Kurt Vanderhoof.
And some of the side stuff even too. The other projects kind of have that sort of vibe to his sound. But yeah, so we were, even then he was talking about doing a new record. So I think that's going to happen, but it wasn't anything where they could play anything. We had a soft launch of trying to bring this back that summer of, I guess it was 2023. That seems right.
Okay.
We were going to try to do a 2-day metal fest that was going to be one in Portland and one in Seattle, with Amy
Ooh.
Carlson back helping us, that helped us with the first one in 2018 in Seattle.
Oh,
And another guy named AJ, who was a Portland guy, was going to help us with the Portland one. And that we did have Metal Church kind of slated to play, to headline both nights. And we
nice.
had kind of some money with Kurt, and they got offered some more dates overseas that month. And Kurt said everybody kind of wanted to do Europe, and he felt bad about it because he really wanted to play Seattle again with
Sure.
Metal Church and be part of a metal fest. He thought that was kind of a cool full circle. And it
Yeah.
would have been almost the anniversary of the 1984 show. We were just like a
Oh,
couple months.
wow.
Yeah, we were going to do it in August, which we're doing the Soldiers of Steel Metal Fest. But yeah, once that fell through with Metal Church, we tried Sanctuary, and they were on hiatus. We tried other bands. We couldn't get
Sure.
anybody. That was Fifth Angel guys couldn't do it. I talked to Ken and
Sure.
I think John and so yeah, we really kind of, with these, you have to have a little bit bigger of a headliner to really, or
Yeah.
two, to kind of pull these things off and get enough people to come. And so we tabled it, but then I met Brandon last year. He'd moved up, I think, from California is where he was from, and with Nameless Grave Records, and he's a super cool guy, and we like each other a lot. We were doing some label buying and selling, trade, and kind of hanging out and doing things, and did a couple of my record shows and stuff. And he knew Amy as well, and they play
Yeah.
shows, and kind of those guys all running in the same circles with Serpent Rider and Solicitor and
Yeah.
stuff. And it
Great
just made a
bands.
lot of sense to. He asked about, he'd had interest in doing a festival. He's played them and stuff, and Amy was interested, obviously, like I said, in being part of it again. And so Brian and I partnered up with them to do this Soldiers of Steel festival, which we didn't call it the Northwest Metal Fest because we'd done a couple of those, and uh, the it just kind of felt like Brandon has a label that has a lot of non-Northwest metal bands, although he has some on there
Sure.
too.
Sure.
And we just thought kind of a fresh start. Um,
Yeah.
Okay.
so yeah, I mean, there was definitely a couple bands we wanted that couldn't do it. We talked to some of those guys again that I mentioned just a minute ago, and Sanctuary is going to start back doing some stuff
Oh,
next year.
good.
Like Fifth Angel couldn't do it. I think there was conflict with Flotsam and Jetsam dates and some festivals, and also
Oh,
Fifth
right. Because Ken
Angel.
Mary. Yeah.
A lot of the Europe
Yeah.
stuff. I mean, we're kind of competing
Yeah.
against that in the summer with all the festivals, so we knew that.
Yeah.
But summer's also a really good time for this kind of thing. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
the ones we did prior in 2018 and 2019 were in March, which hurt us a little bit with some of that. So the summer
Sure.
thing seemed to be a
People
little
are
more.
broke in March, first quarter of the year
Yeah,
is tough,
yeah.
Uh,
But yeah, we've got a lot of great bands.
Yeah, you sure
Yeah,
do.
another reason for the Soldiers of Steel name was, which by the way, that is a nod towards Sanctuary and our
Oh,
friends.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Initially, we kind of hoped that they could do it, but they weren't ready, which is fine.
Right.
We understand. It's the way it goes with
Yeah.
some of these.
But there's always next year, right?
They'd had interest in the past at doing them, and they just didn't work out with, like, the
Sure.
first time they were with Iced Earth on tour, and the
Oh.
dates just didn't work. And yeah, so it's just kind of the way it goes with some of these things. But we got some great things. Leather is doing the Chastain set. And of course,
That's
there's some
so cool.
guys that you mentioned
Cool.
in your review,
Yeah.
in your plug for it.
Yeah.
Got Lord Weird Slough-Fag. The San Francisco guys are fantastic. And they're
Yeah.
coming up. We got a couple non-Northwest ones.
Yeah. But I think the vibe
Twisted
is just,
Towers, the replacement that's on Brandon's label. Those guys are North Carolina guys, are really,
Yeah.
those guys are pretty awesome. I love those records. So that was kind of a cool thing that came up, where Brandon talked to him after it looked like Heir Apparent wasn't going to happen, since they
sure.
lost the drummer, sadly, after playing the festivals and stuff this last spring. And
Yeah.
it's the bad luck of Heir Apparent with us, with 3 times
Yeah.
we've won the thing.
Oh, I know. It's like
Jeez.
I was all set to see their first ever Portland show with Harry Conklin guesting, and I had to work the next day. I was like, can't
Yeah,
not.
isn't that the luck of it? All those
Yeah.
weeknight shows, they just
Yeah.
make
It's
it tough.
I manage a band, and I try not to book them weeknight shows just because
Yeah.
it's like who can come out to them? People with weird ass schedules.
Yeah.
It's
It's
so
it works for the touring, the big touring bands
Yeah,
and
because people
acts
will make time for
because
them. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, you're going to come because it's your only chance to see him or whatever on a weeknight.
Right.
Plus, if you
Right.
live in the city, sometimes it's not as bad.
Yeah.
It's harder for me because I'm an hour away from Portland and a couple hours south of Seattle. And
Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
just can't, I've got to go stay somewhere. Usually, if I go, I can't drive back at 2 o'clock in the morning. Or
Yeah.
Fair enough.
That's
Yeah.
pretty tough.
I'm
You
old. I
know,
get tired. And
dude, I'm in my 40s and like I went to the Northwest Terror Fest and it was like it's like I lost an entire night of sleep
yeah,
and then
you
I'll
just
never
like,
get back.
plus you're
For
so
so
keyed up too. You're
oh
so
yeah, oh yeah,
energized
yeah.
after these things. You can't
It
sleep.
yeah, so it's hard, like
Yeah.
getting older and trying to be the old the war horse
Yeah.
of like,
Yeah.
yes, I'll go to metal show 2 nights in a row, no problem. No, my
Yeah, for
back
What
sure.
was I
hurts.
thinking?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
But
a lot of cool
oh,
bands. Coven
yeah,
guys are playing, as you said.
yeah.
Hammerhead, first reunion show ever. Those guys have had a
Sweet.
couple. So they had a reissue of their '87 record.
Yeah.
They've got a new record they've recorded that it sounds like is going to be out this month, which is
Oh,
pretty rad.
wow.
We're
Wow.
doing a little signing release party with them and the Rottweiler guys in Polsbo at Rock and Ruby's Records. They've got a couple stores, Polsbo and Bainbridge Island up there. And my
Okay.
friend Brian, that does Northwest Metalworx with me and books and stuff, he's in um, uh, he's in Belfair out there on the
Okay.
peninsula.
Okay.
It's just by
Nice.
Port Orchard there. So, we're
Okay.
trying to look to do some things out that way. The Hammerhead guys are up in Port Townsend. Our
Okay.
friend Mark from Whiskey Stick is coming. He is in Polsbo. A couple
Okay.
of the Rottweiler guys, Izzy and Rick, are scheduled to come. They said they're coming. A couple of the Coven guys are coming. Dean and
Nice.
I think Neil or Jamie. I can't remember which one said
Okay.
they're coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, and hopefully a few other guys. We usually get a
Yeah.
few people showing up from different bands and stuff. And so people will talk about the festival and the releases and things other people are doing and just kind of have a fun time, get together. So anybody around the Seattle, Tacoma areas, the peninsula out there wants to ferry it over or drive up, we're doing that.
Very
And then
cool.
we're also giving away a couple passes
Oh.
and posters and stuff to the Soldiers of Steel Festival. So you
Oh,
could win
wow.
a couple weekend passes.
Very
Free
cool.
raffle, no cost to enter it or anything. We're just going to
Nice.
do some giveaways there, kind
Very
of
cool.
promote it
Nice.
that way. And yeah, so that should be a lot of fun. There's a lot of great local bands. Silver Talon guys are on the bill
Oh,
too.
yeah. We love
As I
Silver
mentioned,
Talon.
Brandon and Amy's bands that are great. Serpent Rider
Yeah.
and,
Oh,
and,
yeah.
and Solicitor on there. Rope. God, there's so many bands. Oh, Danover guys. Those guys are
Yeah.
pretty awesome.
Blade.
With
Blade.
Diamond,
We
great.
love Blade. We see them
Blades,
whenever
yeah,
we
those
can.
guys are coming.
They're really fun.
Yeah, just a bunch of bands. Colony Drop, Joseph Schaefer's band. Those guys are really cool. Joe that does the Terror Fest every year up there in Seattle. Yeah, just a bunch of cool bands. Taste of Iron guys are going to come and play again. They're a really great female-fronted band.
Yeah.
Tacoma band from the 80s.
Yeah. That was a band I had
Cool.
no knowledge of before the announcement of this festival. I'd
Yeah.
never heard of Taste of
They
Iron.
played
And
our first Metal Fest. They've had a reissue of their, I think, self-released record they did back in the mid-'80s, and they've had a new record they put out a few years back, and they played our first Metal Fest. Q5 is going to join us again. We had to cancel, unfortunately, with Sacred Blade, they couldn't get their passport stuff in time. So hopefully next year they'll be able to do it. We had them on
Sacred Blade, that's cool.
Yeah, they were going to be really cool. They're doing some festivals, so they're kind of just getting out. They're going to have a reissue, or they had a reissue already actually on Supreme Echo Records. Did a cool vinyl reissue. Shout out to Jason up there in Canada, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Rick Pearson's solo band, the TKO and Q5 guitarist. From Rottweiler. First ever show. They've got a brand new record out. Floyd Rose, that was the Q5 guy back in the 80s and did the locking tremolo, developed that and created that.
Yep.
He produced it and co-wrote some of it. He plays on some guitar and stuff on it. And that band is Frankie Rongo from Nightshade and Q5. Also Thor's band he used to play in back in the day.
Right on. I saw Thor.
Yeah, he's a pretty awesome drummer.
Right on.
That's Izzy, Frankie, Rick, and this new guy, Chris James, on vocals, who's really good. You could see him doing Q5 and TKO stuff too, probably, which there may be some guests. with Q5 and
Oh,
Rick
very
Pierce band.
cool.
I'm just going to say that there might be some
Okay.
special people getting up there as a guest
Okay.
or two. That's kind of in the works. So
That's cool.
Well, very
Yeah.
good.
so
Well,
yeah, I mean that's going to be fantastic too.
yeah.
Rick is one of the best guitarists out of Seattle. I mean that guy's way underrated. He's always
Okay. Very
phenomenal.
good.
So,
Nice.
yeah.
Well, James, I think we do have to wrap at this point.
Sure.
But I want to thank you so much for joining us today. You've been so
Yes,
generous
thank
with
you.
your time.
Thanks,
This
guys.
has
Yeah,
been
it was awesome.
it's been a very illuminating conversation. I want to encourage our viewers to please, if you can swing it, get up to Soldiers of Steel Festival, August 1st and 2nd. It is an incredibly stacked lineup of like all these classic heavy metal bands. It is going to be a great time. Please hit that up if you can. I want to thank
Thanks.
our guest
Yeah.
James R. Beach for joining us today. And hell yeah, dude. Thank you again
Yeah,
so
and
much.
just northwestmetalworksmusic.com is our
Oh, yes.
website. So
Yes.
for all of our books and Queensryche bio we've done. We published Brian Nairn worked with our friend Brian Heaton, who helped us and co-wrote and was our third guy on the Building an Empire Queensryche bio. He did a really cool touring history of Queensryche throughout the classic lineup from
Yeah.
the start through like 97, 98. And that's a really cool coffee table book with a bunch of images and stuff. And then just on the air officially, I've got a TKO bio book, which incorporates Q5 and War Babies and other bands,
wow.
Nightshade and so on.
Very nice.
Suicide. That is almost done right now. I'm
Oh,
kind of
wow.
wrapping it up with everybody, some last minute kind of
Okay.
interview stuff and different things. All goes well, that'll be out in the fall. That's what we're shooting for. Brian Heaton also has a Fifth Angel bio coming out that he's announced. So we're
Wow.
gonna do kind of like a special pre-order thing soon. So yeah, a lot of stuff
Okay.
going on.
A
So
lot of exciting stuff from Northwest
Very
Metalworx.
cool, man.
So folks, please watch for that stuff. Go buy these books and albums. There's really a great label. James, thank you again for joining us, man. Really appreciate
thank
you
you
taking
guys.
the time.
I love
All
your
right.
show. Thanks for
Thank
having me
you.
on there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And we'll see you guys soon. Talk to you
All
soon.
right.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you, James. Bye-bye.